All right. Well, thank you very much for coming today. Those of you out there in the internet watching us on the video screen, we really appreciate you joining us. My name's Eric Meeks with Remax Desert Properties, and today we're going to go over the Desert Housing Report. It's the April 2022 edition of it, so it ended as of April 30th, right? There's 30 days in April. On that there, today is May 19th. And we're going to share some information with you that we know. We're lucky to have three fabulous real estate agents with us. On my left here, we have Kerry Uher, who I've known for 20 years almost, since she was just a kid. And she's been an agent with us how long, Kerry?
How long have I been here? 5 years?
I don't think it's quite five.
5, but a long time since you guys opened your doors.
3 or 4. I mean, you were one of the early ones with us. Well,
but
thank you for joining us today. Kerry just recently bought a piece of land and a house up in Morongo and is turning it into kind of a farm of sorts. What are you doing up there?
I'm actually trying to turn it into a nonprofit animal sanctuary, and we're rescuing farm animals only, mainly. So pigs, goats, and all the animals nobody wants anymore.
That's fantastic. I wish you lots of luck. In the middle of there, we have Tracey. That's my wife, Tracey Wrubleski Meeks. She runs our Indian Wells office and just helps me in everything in life. She gets all the credit for really starting off Remax Desert Properties because she was an agent long before me. And anyways, thank you for joining us. Tracey, how are things going down in Indian Wells?
Good. Everything's good. Yeah. I was thinking I collect children.
She does. Like potato chips.
That's right. That's right.
We stopped at 8, right?
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
8, yeah.
Really? That's
Yeah. Yeah, no more.
Okay, and to Tracey's left over here, we have Crystal Freel. Crystal's been with us 6 months or a year, somewhere in there?
Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah. And she's cut her teeth this year. It was her first year in general real estate, although she's been kind of a corporate leasing agent for a number of years before that. But how's it gone your first year being with Remax?
Good. I have 23 years in property management, and I was a vice president before I left. But I've had my real estate license since 2014. So it's been great. It's it's a lot.
It is.
What a time to jump in.
Yeah, but I know. I found that out after I did it. But it's been great. I already have some deals under my belt, and I'm working on 3 right now. So, well, things are good.
Congratulations. Yep. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin here. Look at this. Using the Desert Housing Report, this is a report that comes to all the real estate agents in the Coachella Valley from both the California Desert Association of Realtors or the General Palm Springs Association of Realtors. And through either one of those channels, if you're an agent, you can get this report, and that allows me to share it with those of you watching and for all of us to comment on it here. So as we go through it here on the first slide, it goes through and details what the market is like over the 9 Coachella Valley cities that are out here, which is the general place that we do the bulk of our business, although Crystal also sells up in the Temecula, Hemet, and Murrieta area. And Kerry, have you started selling in the high desert since moving to Morongo?
Not yet. It's kind of a harder market to tap into.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll break it. Break into it.
Yeah.
Not break it. Okay, in the summary here, you'll see that home prices are continuing to surge. At the end of April, the median price was in the $670,000 range, up about 20% over a year ago. And over 2 years, it's an astonishing 52%. So people have seen a ton of equity in their homes over the last 2 years, and primarily under COVID. Okay, the median price for attached homes in April was $479,000 and change, up almost 40% year over year. So the market has continued to grow. I know it's continued to have problems with inventory, but we're going to bullet down into this onto some specific things rather than just do it all in the summary. So on this chart here, you can see that if we look at it, I'm trying to look here. Here at the top right, $670,000, okay, $500. That's for a median price of a detached home. That's a regular single-family home, probably like just about all of us grew up in, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just regular home that Middle America lives in. And that's the typical type of home out here in the Coachella Valley. But if you follow that back to April of 2021, that home was under $600,000, getting actually down to about 500,000-ish. So as you look at it, 559 if you choose that point there of April 21, exactly 1 year ago. So over $100,000 increase. Have all of you experienced that, Kerry? I mean, the last year.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Have you had talked to like any of your buyers or so that you sold a year or two back and had those types of conversations with
Oh
them?
yeah.
Yeah.
They're very excited.
They are. And I know Tracey, I mean, your clientele, I mean, you've got people who bought 20, 30 years ago on it. How excited are they about what their decision that they made to buy?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think back even to like when the downturn was around 2000. I had quite a few who bought, for under 200,000, and now I think their places are over. Like I've seen places where they own their properties that are going into escrow at just around the high sixes or seven. Yeah,
Awesome.
incredible.
Now, I look at the chart here, and if you look in 2007, right there is the high. Okay, that those of us who were in the business at that point, and then how it dropped off when the economy crashed from then to about 2010. Okay, and then it began to rebuild. But for the longest time, I heard from people, well, when are we going to get past this again? And look at where we're at now. So I know that you've mentioned it to me, Tracey, a couple times about people who are like, well, it's going to crash, it's going to fall, and they think that's going to happen now. What do you think is going to happen, say, over the next 6 months to a year in the market? And if somebody came to you right now and said, should I buy? How would you answer that?
Well, I always laugh when I think about when I started my real estate career. I think it was around 1990 in the Deep Well area, and I would show homes to clients, and they were about 100,000. And I would show them the home, and then those houses are now $2.5 to $3 million. And I've been through 2 recessions during that time frame, and those homes are not 100,000; they're $2.5 to $3 million. So, I would say that you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. I mean, it's just like you can't go back to your birth weight. If you buy real estate and you hang on to it, it will go up over time.
I know. Looking at this here, I mean, we all wish we could have bought at the very bottom and sold it at the very top with it, but I remember friends of ours who, during this slide down through here, who sold their homes because it had lost so much equity. They might have bought in 04, 05, 06 and that there and did that. And we did all we could to convince them, hold on, it'll come back. You need somewhere to live anyways, right? And now those that did, especially in these last 2 to 3 years.
I think it's hard when you've got people who are saying that the market's never going to recover, and you have a lot of naysayers when that's taking place. So it takes a very special type of person to be able to hold at that time.
Yeah.
And understand that the market will come back. And the ones who did hang on to their places, I mean, their places, like you can see on that chart, I mean, they're worth a lot of money right now.
Right. If we go to the next slide, we can take a look at attached homes and condos. Okay, Coachella Valley median attached price. And this is one where it generally lags behind the detached homes, the regular single-family homes, but look what it's done over the last 2 years, and especially in the last year, it has just spiked, from $349 a year ago to $479. I'm trying to do the math in my head. Is that a 30% or a 25%? It might be a 40% jump that we saw in the numbers. 37% if I remember that right in the summary, but that's a pretty incredible jump for somebody who came in at a reasonably moderate price. I want to say a low price, but $350,000 is still a real number, for many, many people. But now to have a home that's worth almost $500,000. Crystal, do you have many condos up there in Murrieta and Temecula, or is it mainly single-family homes?
There's a lot of single-family homes, but yeah, there are, especially in like the Sun City area over in Murrieta and Menifee area.
Okay, and have you talked to any of the buyers or sellers over there? What kind of feedback are you getting?
A lot of them bought when it was like 200,000, 150,000, and so the price has gone up
these years
dramatically.
Yes.
Yeah. Since
Yeah.
then. So
I remember that and looking at it because there's a lot of really big homes in the Temecula Murrieta area, and Tracey and I, as she alluded to in the early part, we got 8 kids. So it was one of the areas that we were looking at. should we move up there? I mean, look at how much home we could buy.
Yeah.
On that there. So what's the average price point of a home in that area now that you're coming across?
It's on the higher end. It just depends. There's, with the people that are not 55 plus, you're going to have a little bit higher range. But I mean, it's not far fetched to have 600, 700, 800,000 on the low end, and then on the high end, upwards of over $1 million.
I would bet.
Yeah.
Well, here, I mean, a lot of these 350 to 479, those are just like regular condos, or could be golf course condos, stuff like that. But I mean, what a jump that we've
I've
seen in
got
prices.
one client who bought it Indian Palms Country Club, and I think it's not even been 2 years, and he's more than doubled his money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, on both properties I sold them. So instead of 350, and I just saw one go in at over 700 with less square footage than the two houses he bought.
Right.
So it just shows where the market is.
In my head, I'm calculating which one of our friends is that owner. And there I'm thinking maybe Terry and Carla, because I know John and Nancy could say the same sort of thing, and they bought condos from me that at the time were under 100,000, and now they're in the mid to high 200s. So I mean,
Yeah, that was Palm
they've
Lake
like tripled,
over in-
in the time period they've bought
This
them.
makes me think about like in 2018 when I had clients squawking about prices then, trying to put in lowball offers. Mm-hmm. Look at us now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to get this to a size that maximizes here. How many of you have had a conversation lately with like a friend or a previous client or a family member where they're like, well, I just don't know if I should buy, it looks like it's going to fall apart, and they're almost hopeful that the market crashes because they want to buy it again for less than what it is right now. And are we having any success with those types of...
No. And I always tell those people too, I mean, there's a housing shortage. Nobody's building new houses. So if there's a housing shortage and there's no new homes being built, how is it going to fall?
Right. I agree.
know.
And there's not a bunch of bad loans out there right
Yeah.
now. So
It might not go up 50% in the next year, but it's going to go up a little bit.
I just saw some economist. It was in Inman magazine where it was talking about the possibility of what's going to happen, what that person was forecasting for the next year, and they had some sort of knowledge and credentials. I can't remember what it was, but they seemed like a pretty smart person. And they were saying the same thing because of the housing shortage on that there and the secure loans on it, that they weren't expecting that 30-40% jump like we've seen in the last year or two, but we'll probably return to a more moderate gain of around 5%. On it. Have any of you right now, like Crystal, I think you just wrote an offer or two, just recently. Were they over asking price?
Yes.
They still were. And this was just in the last few days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think it depends too, the price range, because I've sold a couple places in between like 7 and 8, and I'm getting the full price offer, not more than that.
okay.
And it's not happening in 2 days; it's happening in a week time.
Yeah, I forgot that. You're selling a house right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that just in the last month, because I sold one at the end of last month, and the same thing.
I've heard from a number of agents lately with us that there's still competition for the houses, but it's not like they're getting 10 offers or more on every listing they do, but maybe they'll get 3.
Yeah.
So they're still ending at asking or slightly above, but it's not, which,
I do think it's price point, though, like Kerry said, because like one of the agents in our office, she had 5 offers on a property of $650,000, and which 650 seems low compared to like a lot of them when you start getting up to 700,000 and 800,000, and so it is price point.
I agree.
It's price point. So.
And as we shift lower in price, which makes it more affordable for a greater amount of people, I think there's more competition as we shift more to that million plus, or even in the between 500 and a million. We see the quantity of people that can compete for that less.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Raquel who told you, Tracy, that before the last 2 interest rate hikes, somebody who in their mind could afford a $5 million home based on a traditional loan of something can now afford
we were talking, and with the interest rate hikes, a person who could afford a $500,000 home right now could afford about a $425,000 home. So a lot of times when people in their minds, they start sitting there thinking I'm going to wait, you have to take into account that the interest rates may not wait with you. And as soon as they start to adjust, that knocks out a certain amount of the homes that you could have bought. And anyways, and that puts you in a position where you're probably going to have to look at homes that are even less than that, because if you have something that is like, say, 425, you're probably going to have more than one offer against it. You might have, or maybe you're going to be full price or whatever, but if your budget's 425, you're not going to probably be looking at 425. You might be looking at a little bit less, so that you can kind of compete and make sure you get that home. It gets a little bit harder.
It's
So.
good information. I look forward to these reports in the next months ahead, because in May, or for the May report, which will come out in June, on that there, it'll still show a huge spike year over year, but we'll begin to see it leveling off a little bit also. And if it continues on that trend, the longer it does, the more it'll be visible in the reports.
Well, it's also hard when you don't have any inventory to sell.
Yes,
Yeah.
and well, we're getting to that slide here in just a minute. But as you can see, I mean, when we look at an average size of a home, I like this change that CDAR and PSR put into this report recently, where they now rate the average size of the home that's sold in those neighborhoods. And as you can see, Cathedral City or Desert Hot Springs is under 2,000 square feet. But as you go to the more affluent areas, the homes get bigger on it. And that's also reflected in a price per square foot and in the amount. So here, the current average price per home in this here, I should move to here so I don't get too far away from the mic, but Rancho Mirage and Indian Wells, well over $1 million. Palm Springs these days, that is a huge jump from a couple of years ago. I remember when it was cresting right at about $1 million. I think it was between 6 months and a year ago, and now it's almost $1.5 million. You know, and it's just a phenomenal spike in the numbers. Palm Desert, as we look at it, hitting that price point right between 700 and 800,000 on it. And if you look a year ago on that, the same home a year ago in Palm Desert would sell for just under 600,000. Now it's almost 800,000. You know, I mean, that's a 32%, 32.6% jump in a single year. I mean, tell me that you shouldn't be calling your clients who bought a year ago and just saying, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
I mean, should they not be thrilled with us as agents?
I do love those calls and emails when I send them out.
Yes.
Aren't you happy right now?
It's true. It's true. I mean, there should not be an agent out there who's afraid to call their past clientele right now. No, but I mean, every category in here is between 29 and 43%. I don't think anything is lower than 29.4%, and the highest one in here is 47. Yeah, 47.9 for a condo in Rancho Mirage. That much in here. That's almost doubling in a year. Yeah, well, 49.9. I apologize. It is doubling in a year. Okay. Now, let's go to the next slide here. Again, talking about quantity of sales, and this is something that I did start to see a little bit this year, is that we've started, in my opinion, we've started returning to a more traditional seasonality of sales. Okay, and over COVID, it virtually disappeared. I remember in the summer of 2020, where it's like we had that slight dip in February and March, and then it just took off again and just went right through the summer in a full upswing on it. And now if you look at it, we are seeing, as we go into the fall and then into the season, we're seeing that kind of up and down as we're getting. It's not a huge dip, and these numbers are of course reflected a little bit more because of inventory that we have for them, but there is some seasonality in there on it. That's anyway, that's total sales, and notice how much it dropped from 1276 back in 2021 to now. Where's that? A little over 800, 850. Am I seeing that right? Yes, probably somewhere close to 900 homes in a single month that's selling. 981. There we go. So under 1,000. Maybe, but that's reflected because of inventory.
It is. It's totally inventory.
Yeah. Crystal, have you worked with any buyers lately? And you have. How hard was it to find the homes that you wrote the offers on recently?
Very difficult. Yeah, only because at the price point we were looking in, wanting to be in a certain area, you have multiple offer situations. So, you know, unless you're willing to go to a certain point, you know, you're not going to win the home. And we had a few that we were so close, and we finally are in escrow now with this particular client.
And these are up in the high desert, right? So are they Yucca
No,
or
these
Joshua?
are the one I'm working on right now is Sun City Palm Desert, which
Okay.
Again, I mean, it was phenomenal. Like within 2 days, they were off the market, and they were accepting an offer on the homes. But yes, Joshua Tree is booming right now with land,
Right.
and that is another area that I have clients looking, and it's amazing because. Again, I mean, there's the ones that are the most desirable, obviously have a flood
go
of
quick.
offers, and the other ones, you know, will sit there. So, but it just takes a lot of investigation.
Yeah. And Tracy, how long did it take your home on Hampshire in Sun City to from listing to accepted offer?
It seemed like probably around a week. I'm trying to think.
About
Yeah.
7 days on it. I remember not that long ago when it would be a 30 to 60 day cycle in order to get an offer accepted. And now we're down to under a week.
I was thinking that the other day. Like, it's hard to believe that properties were on the market for 66 days. I don't remember.
Yeah. It seems like so long ago, but it really wasn't. Attached total sales here going on again, dropping a little bit because of inventory. I'm going to move past this one. Home sales by city. Okay, and this one to me is really not surprising overall because the cities like, as we look in the middle of the chart here where you've got the highest spikes, La Quinta, Palm Desert, and Palm Springs are the largest cities, followed closely by Indio and Rancho Mirage on each side of those three in the middle. But if you look at the blue ones, the blue is this year's sale, okay, in each one of those cities, and the gold one is last year's sales. So citywide, city by city, it's a drop in the quantity of sales for what's going on there.
And again, inventory, I think.
Inventory, that's it.
I mean, you're always going to have the ones that have a poor location or a bad floor plan, and they're going to be a tougher one to sell,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, regardless. And that's where you sometimes have the REOs and stuff like that. There's a reason why they didn't go. And but the ones that are sitting in good locations and they're nice homes, I mean, they're going to sell if they're priced right.
They do it. Earlier in the conversation, we were talking about, I think it was you, Tracy, who brought up in the lower price points, because we're talking Palm Desert in that average $700,000 price range or above, like Kerry's house. There's more competition for those, and as you get to $1 million plus, the competition begins to drop off. This chart reflects that. The highest price point that everybody wishes they could buy a home for is in the $300,000 to $400,000 price range. You know, and last year we could sell almost 300 of those every month. That's a 3-month average there of what we would do there. This year we're barely breaking 100. You know, and it's because there's just not any of those left.
Yeah.
You know, if one comes on, those are probably gone in days.
Yeah.
You know,
And probably multiple offers, too.
Yeah.
I would believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as it shifts, I believe the average price point, well, we saw the average is $670, if I remember from the first slide, what they had here. But as it shifts more to the right, it's still a substantial quantity of homes, but the average home buyer who's, you know, middle America even, I often talk about them. They've got to go 500, 600,000 to get the home that'll fit their family. Yeah.
You know what I find interesting is I look at that one that's 600,000 to 700,000. Last year they only had 85 sell. This year 117. You look at $1 million plus. Last year 189. This year 217. Those are literally only two areas within the price points that actually are having more homes sell this year than they did last year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, in the 400,000 to 500,000, you're right. Well, and the 300 to 400, yeah, there's more homes. No, same time last year. You're
So
talking
like
the 5 to
6
6 and the
yeah.
6 to 7. I got
And
that
then the
right.
million, too.
Yeah.
In the million, you got 217 that sold this year, and last year was only 189. And then in the 5 to 600, you had 149 this year versus 139. Not that much of a gap, but quite a bit of a gap in that $1 million plus price point, when you look at that.
When I look at that, I wonder too, because we have so many people that could sell in San Francisco, LA, and New York and buy out here. That would be more affordable to them, and they'd still have money in the bank account. So that might make sense. 'Cause we definitely saw an influx in people living here full time.
I agree. I think I'm going to float in an idea here because I see two different factors that's affecting that. The 400 to say 700,000 as a top end on that there is a different type of buyer who a year or two ago wished they were buying for 300 to 400,000, but now those homes are 400 to 700,000. So for the same person who has the same needs, it's not like the needs of those people have changed. It's just the price of what they want to fill those needs has increased, and so they've had to go where the price point is for it. Luckily, at that time, interest rates were going down, and they found that they could afford more. Now those buyers, to me, are disappearing a little bit from the market, and that's why we're seeing less competitive, still competition. Because when I address the second one that I think is going on, I see a more affluent buyer that has come into the desert over the last couple of years. And correct me if you think I'm wrong. I mean, we still have the regular buyers we always had. We still have the Canadians who are looking to come down here seasonally. We still have the men from San Francisco, okay, that have come here to the desert over the last 20 years. They've become a significant portion. But I've seen a type of buyer of what I call is the techno-urban. And it doesn't matter gender, it doesn't matter gay or straight, it doesn't even matter age, although I think they are slightly younger on the average. I want to say 30 to 45. Somewhere in there, who made a lot of money in their life already at a fairly young point. And that's why I think the $1 million plus category is seeing the increase. I look at the car dealerships in Rancho Mirage and the expansion that they've done, and the ones here in Palm Springs over by the Mercedes and the BMW shop. And all those dealerships in the last 5 years have rebuilt and expanded. There's got to be a more affluent buyer. Otherwise, we'd be selling more Subarus and Nissans.
Well, I think a lot of those companies, too, they also do a lot of research before they, like Walmart and all these different companies, they do a lot of research before they put in their companies into certain areas, depending on the demographics. That's how they decide. But the one thing that I kind of think about is what Kerry was saying, and I think we're very different from a lot of the other areas. I don't think that people are dependent sometimes on a lot of loans. I think that we are very reasonably priced compared to other areas of California. And so like Kerry was saying, they can sell their homes for top dollar on the coast. They can come down here and they can buy a property and still have money in the bank.
Right.
And still visit the coast in 2 hours.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think
or wine country in Temecula.
Yeah.
But that fits the techno-urban kind of. I mean, yes, it could be just the men of Palm Springs, but that demographic that you just described is not based upon age. It's not based upon retirement. Okay, they've made money on their home wherever else, and they come down here and they buy for. It's still half the price to buy a home here, even $1 million plus, versus a comparable row house somewhere in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is we have the weather. You
Right.
get up to sunshine every morning here. You're not on the coast waking up to a gloomy sky, and you have to wait till 11 o'clock in the morning for the gloom to burn off. And like Kerry said, you're 2 hours to the beach. So we've got a lot of things at our fingertips. And so the other thing is you don't have to get on a plane to fly to Hawaii and maybe get COVID while you're going there. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are coming from other areas of the country that are very cold, and they can still buy properties for very reasonable prices.
I agree. I do. And I think they like that outdoor lifestyle that they can get without the crowd. Because if they're moving from a metropolitan area, they're dealing with 1,000 people between their front door and the supermarket, wherever that is, a block or two away. Here, I mean,
Well, I heard a lot of clients saying during COVID they realized their house was really small and they wanted more because they got stuck in it.
Yes.
So I think a lot of those people also decided I'm going to sell high and buy a bigger place somewhere else.
I could sell a 2-bedroom apartment in a big city and get a 3-bedroom house with a pool out here and still have money in the bank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got like tons of hiking trails and biking trails and art festivals and good dining and
All
theater
that
and
stuff.
you name it. So
Yeah, well, now this next chart here, this shows us what's happening with inventory. okay, right now. And this, again, in my opinion, reflects some of the seasonality, because if we look over a year ago, okay, during the summertime, okay, we were still had a fair amount of inventory compared to the last 2 years. It went down as we sold. Okay, during the seasonality of it, we sell a lot more, but it's beginning to creep back up as we get a little later in. I think we're seeing a small, not overwhelming, but people who were holding back earlier because they didn't know what was going to happen with the world, they don't want to wait anymore. Now's the time to sell. So that's here. But look at where we were a couple of years ago. I mean, back in 2020, almost 3,000 homes on the market.
I was thinking about how I could never be happy, because when there was 3,000 homes on the market, I'd be frustrated. I'm like, there's 20 things to send to this one client. And now I'm like, now there's only 3. Like,
Yeah.
there's
You're
no
lucky
middle
if there's
ground.
3.
I know. I can't be happy.
I know. I've got one buyer who's bought and sold for me a couple times in the last 10 years. Right now wants to buy a $300,000 condo in Palm Springs on fee simple land.
Oh my gosh.
A month ago, I found one. He rushed out here, but then the husband and wife couldn't make the decision. And now a month later, they're going, Eric, they're $350 now. And I'm like, I told you. I tried. I didn't want to burn a bridge with you, but yeah, I'm not there. But I mean, if you see what happened, this is why all the agents are talking about low inventory. We're down to less than a fourth. I want to say 3,000 down to 859. 4 times 8 is 32. Almost a fourth. Okay, of what it is, of what we were a couple of years ago. Yeah. Months of sales ratio. This one I always have a little fun with on that there. They're reflecting here 0.9 months. Okay, so if you look at an average of the market, nothing on average is lasting more than a month. And I mean, we talked about them going in days. 7 days for Hampshire. I mean, the ones that you were competing after were and you're one in Palm Desert. How long did it take to sell that?
It took, I think, 4 days.
4 days. Okay. And I know that some are taking longer. I've got one listing on one right now that's a month and a half, but now the seller's thinking about turning it into a rental because it's in such a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
But that's a rarity on that there. Most of the homes are selling in considerably shorter period of time, because when you've got an average of 0.9, they're just selling very, very fast. Let me go here. Months of sale range by price range. Again, showing how on the lower end, as we hit those 300, 400,000, even in the $500,000 range, they're going, you can see a shorter and shorter time span. I mean, if somebody could find an under 100,000 home in the Coachella Valley, it's going to take 0.2 of a month. So I mean, that's a 6-day average. I know that there's been some where they've sold in hours, when they go on the market.
Didn't you have one, Kerry, out in one out in the Trilogy area that went within days and it was 50,000 over?
I think I did. That was a while ago, though. I had one in La Quinta just by the tennis gardens, and it was less than 24 hours, and the agent basically was like, I'll give you any offer you want. So I think it was like 30 over asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been an amazing market.
Yeah, La Quinta's the good spot, too, because I think of the electricity is a lot cheaper, because we have different...
Right, Imperial Irrigation District,
But
right there.
even in the million-plus range, less than 2 months, okay, on an average. I mean, and that used to be a 6-month time frame or more, for homes, not just a couple of years ago. Pretty amazing that that price of home, and it's because we've got a quantity of buyers that will compete for them out here. Months of sales by city, a year ago, green, okay. A year ago is the yellow, green is this year. On an average, about a month worth of sales. So what this means is that when looking at the inventory stock that we have right now, how long on average would it take to sell it all? And if they were all priced right, basically we would be out of inventory in a month. Okay, with what we have there.
That's a good one to show people who think a recession's coming.
Yeah.
Well, I laugh when I hear that, because I know that even with our older son, he does not live in this area. a couple years ago, he was looking at fixtures for $600,000 in the area he lives in, and I said buy. And he's like, oh, it's going to drop. Well, guess what? Now you can buy it for $1 million too. So it's now gone up. He could have made $600,000. So, for a fixer.
Well, and if you think about it this way, in one of the earlier charts that we didn't dwell on a lot, but it showed an average of over 1,200 homes a month selling in the entire 9 cities of the Coachella Valley. Okay, but how much inventory do we have right now? It was less than 900. Yeah. So how do we sell 1,200 homes out of 900? Well, you do it by selling them in less than a month. I'm sorry, you were going to answer that, I think.
Escalation clauses.
Escalation clauses, that's it. Yes. Well, we do it because it takes less than a month. The average days on the market is 21 days. And so if you can sell everything in stock in less than a month, you can sell more homes than you actually have in stock because new ones come on and fill some of the gaps. But, pretty shocking.
You hope some of your past clients want to cash in on some of their money.
And even attached homes. The top part here is the detached homes. And if I remember right, the blue is this month, April of 2022. The white is last year. So last year, and just picking Palm Desert here, it would take over a month on average to sell a home in Palm Desert. Okay. This year it's 22 days, and that's days on the market. That doesn't include escrow time, but for the average home there. City by city, it's between 16 and 25. Let me move this chart over just a little to the left. Palm Springs is down to 14 days for the average home on the market. I know we've all encountered times where we've had a buyer and we're like, look, we should make an offer if this is really, and they hesitate. My buyer is a perfect example of that. And even the condos are doing the same thing. 12 days for a Palm Springs condo to stay on the market. And Indian Wells, because of the higher price point, roughly a month. And then everywhere in between, city by city. Homes selling over list price. This is a new chart. They didn't have this one last month. Here, and let's pull that this way here. Again, working with an average here and looking at the last few years. I need to shrink that a little bit because I think I need the left-hand side. Okay, so 0% would be 100% of asking price in looking at this chart. And then it's how much over asking price it goes. 55.5% of homes are selling for over asking price. So over half the homes on the market. Does that fit what you've all, Crystal? I mean, when you've done several offers lately, does that fit what you're dealing with out there?
For sure.
Yeah. It's
And I will say, like, the house I just sold in Palm Desert probably would have gone over asking if I had done what a lot of I'm seeing agents do right now. They're letting it sit on the market for 2 weeks and saying we're reviewing offers on such and such date. Well, I didn't really want to do that. I just wanted to take a good offer. So
and we're all looking for that type of seller right now. I was generous of you to do that. Yeah, you might have been able to squeeze out some more money.
Yeah.
But you may not have.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I mean, you asked a fair amount for your home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't like you gave it away.
Mm-mm.
You know, and luckily there's enough buyers out there that they would compete.
Yeah.
Well, the hard thing is too is then you've got to review all the offers and try to decide who's actually giving you an offer or that they're real.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the market we're in, sometimes sellers are putting out buyers are putting out multiple offers. And so you go with them thinking you have a real buyer, and then you don't. And so then it falls out of escrow, and that's a real pain.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have any of you seen this scenario where if you're representing a seller and a buyer comes forward, they say they're all cash, and then you get into escrow with them and they want to switch to finance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had that deal.
You've had that happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very common right now because they
And
know
they
the
couldn't
cash.
get approved.
Right.
And it was like, okay.
Yeah, it's a way of trying to give themselves some leverage in the negotiating because they know the seller is afraid of what it's going to appraise at. And so if they say they're cash, you're more likely to accept the offer.
Mm.
Yeah, so like you said, you've got to make sure that your buyers are real out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Hard.
they are some of them a little creative. You know, they do. Desert housing, price detached homes, price per amount. I've always got to remember what's this one here. Oh, discount. Okay, price discount. There is no discount.
Yeah.
Okay, they're selling between 1% and 5% over asking price on average. So I mean, while there may on a rarity have something going under asking price, it's extremely rare. It's not. It'd probably be in the 0.0% category that they are on that area. A year ago, there were a few, but even then, they were pretty close to asking price on it. But this year, every chart out there, whether it's a condo or a single-family home, they're all going over asking. And that's about it. So let me ask you, in summary, anything about the market that any of you ladies are seeing that we didn't address here? Anything else that you'd like to add?
I mean, I feel like I am kind of seeing it level out a little bit. Prices not going up as high. I've seen a couple price reductions and 14 days on the market, so that's good for buyers.
I agree. I've seen similar things. Less competition for them. There's still competition, but not as much. And yeah, some price reduction. Because I think what we're seeing now is that the sellers who said, okay, give me the comps, and you have that listing presentation conversation, and that, let's just pretend it comes to $800,000 for that home. And they're like, well, with the way its market has gone, I should ask $850 or $899. And then they go on the market for a couple of weeks and they don't get any activity or any offers. And then they're like, well, okay, maybe we overshot a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go back to 850 or 800.
Yeah.
That's there. Same?
Yeah, with the exception of sellers that didn't take the advice of their realtor and they wanted a pie in the sky number that wasn't accurate, you know, I think for the most part, you are seeing it just level a little bit. Like there's, you know, it's not, and you can tell the ones that are overpriced that, you know, are sitting there. You can, you know, have a conversation with your buyer. Look, you know, this one's been on here for a month now. This is what happened. They've already reduced the price once. You know, this is probably fair market value for it. You know, so you can have that conversation and go through it. But the ones that are actually pricing it correctly, or maybe even a little lower, are very smart because
They're
then
still
it's
selling.
multiple offer situation over asking.
Yeah, and I also think too, because of where the stock market is right now, you've got some people a little bit in shock. They're also in shock because of where the interest rates have gone. So we kind of had shock 2 years ago when COVID hit. But then within 2 months, the market went crazy. So sometimes I think it takes people a little bit to kind of regain their footing.
Right.
And to kind of realize that, okay, and readjust their thinking. And it's hard to say what will happen in a couple months from now. It might be the same thing we had happen a few years ago, you know, depending on where things go because of the stock market and because of where interest rates are and, you know,
When you
things
say
like
the
that.
same thing that happened a couple of years ago, you mean
Right
the
after
market
COVID.
going up? Or
Yeah,
Yes.
where all of a sudden the market became so active that it's now driven us to the point of having no inventory.
I'd personally love to see the Feds not continue to raise interest rates, but hold right about where they're at right now. I don't have a crystal ball or anything. And then right before the election, reduce the interest rate by like just 0.25%. And I think somewhere this fall, just that little push in a direction would, much like how we all see gas prices go to $5-6 or whatever, and then they cut it down to $4.50 or $5.50, and we're like, oh great, let's go travel to grandma, you know, whatever it is. I think if that were done with the interest rate, the economy would behave the same way we do on gas prices.
Actually, it's kind of funny because I bought my first house when I was 23, and my mortgage broker said to me at the time that to watch the U.S. economy because I'm, you know,
Yeah,
not
Canadian.
Canadian.
Yes.
And he says when they are going to have an election, the president's going to want to be in the favor of the people. So he's going to you'll watch the interest rate; it'll go down at that time. And
I
you
like
know,
your grandma.
It wasn't my grandma.
Oh, I thought it was your grandma. You
It was
said
my mortgage broker.
Your mortgage broker. Well, your grandma should have been your mortgage broker.
It was my mortgage broker. Yeah, and And he gave me that piece of advice, and I think that it's true that when your president wants to be, wants to stay in, he wants to stay in the favor of the people. And, you know, if you're going to make a move, that's the time to maybe look towards making a move.
Well,
So.
we shall see.
You mentioned about the stocks, and I just wanted to mention, because
Go ahead.
another thing that obviously got hit very hard was 401k and IRAs, and I know personally I have quite a bit for my my job, and it was shocking to see that much money. So you're right. I think there's like a momentary where people are like a little worried, like what's going to happen. But then, you know, hopefully people will get over that shock and we'll start.
Well, I think they will, because when the jobs report comes out, we're still hundreds of thousands of people additionally being hired, even though we're getting down into the 3%, you know, right now for the Quinta people. So, I mean, there's about as many people or more employed currently than ever has been in American history. So I understand that initial shock, and yes, you look in your bank account or your 401k or your stock account or whatever it is for the people who have those, and yes, it can be shocking. But then your next paycheck comes in and it still cashes, and you're realizing you can still pay your bills, and that so I think people emotionally work their way through those as life just continues normal. And I think much like our chart that we showed on home prices after the fall in 2007 or so, life just goes on, and, you know, gallon of milk goes up and everything else. You still got to work, and, you know, life goes on.
I think, hey, we went through COVID, and the things we did to show homes during COVID. If we could walk through that, we can walk through anything. We just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other one.
I think that's an excellent place to call this showcase here over. And thank you, ladies, very much for participating in the Desert Housing Report. Crystal Freel, Tracey Wrubleski Meeks, and Kerry Uher, I am in much thanks for you coming in today and answering these questions and helping us through it. Thank you very much. My name's Eric Meeks. I appreciate your time. Please check in with us again on the Desert Real Estate channel, or just Google RE/MAX Desert Properties. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you found it both fun and informative. Please like and subscribe and make comments below. And remember, if there's anything I can ever do for you, all you have to do is give me a call. I'm Eric Meeks. Thank you again. Have a good day.